Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday, November 15th. Quite an interesting weather situation developing as a coastal low will form over the next 24 hours or so, and it could have an impact on at least parts of the mid-Atlantic region during the latter part of the weekend, going into the early part of next week. Cold weather still dominates here in the mid-Atlantic region as we begin the last day of the work week, but temperatures should modify and reach 50 degrees this afternoon for highs. That'll be the first time we've reached 50 degrees in quite a few days here. But a cold front comes through in the overnight hours, knocks off at least 10 degrees from those temperatures, so we'll be closer to the 40-degree mark for highs on Saturday afternoon as compared with the 50-degree mark this afternoon. And then attention will turn to the coast as this coastal low intensifies. Could be some strong winds along coastal sections on Sunday into Sunday night, going into Monday. New Jersey coastline, Delmarva coastline, certainly down the Carolina coastline, and still a little unclear as to how far north and west of precipitation will extend from this developing coastal system later in the weekend, going into the early part of next weekend. There could be enough cold air around that if indeed rain does back into the immediate I-95 corridor region. There could be some sleet mixed in as, again, quite a chilly air mass arrives later on tonight going into the early part of the weekend. Let's start off by looking at the latest visible satellite image. There's a frontal system that lies right in this region right now, and really this is the area right in here where low pressure is starting to intensify, and again it'll ride right up to the north and east, either along or just to the east side of the coast here over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. And again, coastal sections really in for some strong wind gusts here during the latter part of the weekend, going into perhaps Sunday night, Monday time frame. And there's chance of precipitation backs all the way up into the I-95 corridor region as early as Sunday. Certainly by late Sunday, Sunday night, there's a threat for rain, and again, sleet's a possibility from the system, as well as it'll be pretty cold. We have this cold front coming through tonight, setting us up for a cold day on Saturday here in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Highs only in the 30s, the upper 30s on Saturday afternoon, so we'll definitely have to keep an eye on this developing coastal system. Well, here's a look at the current surface map, and again, that frontal system that came through the I-95 corridor region earlier in the week has kind of stalled out along the eastern seaboard. Low pressure is starting to form here just to the north and east of the northeast Florida coastline. It will intensify, become quite a strong storm as it rides up along this frontal boundary zone, and again, coastal sections from Long Island across New Jersey, Delmarva down to the Carolinas can see some strong wind gusts as early as late Saturday night going into Sunday morning. All day Sunday could be some very strong winds along the coast, and certainly quite strong, maybe even up to hurricane force over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. Again, precipitation could very well back in to the I-95 corridor region later Sunday going into Sunday night, and there's enough cold air around that there could be some frozen precipitation mixed in. Cold air will be ushered in by this cold front right here. This comes through in the overnight hours, and cold high pressure will head towards the southeastern part of Canada. Again, some 10 to 15 degrees colder on Saturday compared to today. 50 degrees for highs today, probably the upper 30s on Saturday in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor, all ahead of this coastal storm that could have an impact as early as early Sunday, but a little bit more likely later in the day, Sunday night going into Monday. Well, let's walk through the upper level forecast map, the 500 millibar height anomaly maps from last night's NAM model run. We're using the higher resolution model here, the NAM, as compared with the more synoptic scale GFS model here. And there's an upper level system that we'll see coming from the west to the east in the latter part of the weekend that'll kind of play a key role here. And certainly nothing is set in stone right now, but we start off the day with this kind of a closed upper level low down in the deep south. That will help to set off the development, the intensification of this low pressure off the southeast U.S. coastline. Here we are by this evening. Very impressive upper level feature here over the deep south. Low pressure at this time intensifying just on the eastern side of this upper level low. And let's move ahead forward in the week into the weekend here. Again, cold front comes through in the overnight hours, sets the stage for a drop off in temperatures as we begin the weekend here in the Mid-Atlantic region. Here we are Saturday morning now. A fresh cold air mass moves into play here in the Mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S. Meanwhile, we have this upper level feature here down across the northern part of Florida, intensifying low pressure here. At the same time, fresh cold air moves into the Mid-Atlantic and northeast U.S. That oftentimes spells trouble. Let's now move forward here. And here we are into the latter part of the day on Saturday. Very strong winds right along coastal sections of North Carolina, South Carolina at this time, maybe even up to hurricane force just off the coast over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean over the upcoming weekend. And here is that next feature here by Sunday morning that kind of plays a potential key role here as that slides to the east and more or less may act to pull this system back to the west a little bit here. And that is why there is a chance for some precipitation backing in all the way to the I-95 corridor region later Sunday, going into Sunday night. And again, there may be enough cold air around for some of that precipitation to be frozen, maybe in the form of ice pellets here. But again, this is kind of a key player here. We're going into the overnight hours on Sunday. That is kind of a difficult forecast to make exactly what impact that will have on this coastal low. Again, it may act to pull it back to the north and west, and finally we go into the day on Monday and it kind of coalesces into one strong upper level feature centered over the eastern part of the Great Lakes. But again, that second feature will have an impact on that coastal low as we progress through the upcoming weekend. Well, now let's walk through the surface forecast maps on an hourly basis here using the 6Z NAM model run. Low pressure situated just to the northeast of the northeastern coast of Florida off the Georgia coastline. Slowly intensify here. Again, there's already rain falling over the Carolina coastline region, and as the system intensifies, the winds will pick up, especially along coastal sections there of the Carolinas. And here we go now into the Friday night, Saturday morning. Here's that strong high pressure system moving in from south central Canada, building into the southeastern part of Canada, and that will send a shot of cold air, very cold for this time of the year. Once again, highs Saturday in the 30s in the I-95 corridor region, and we should be well up in the 50s this time of the year. So the cold pattern continues, and here we have to deal with this coastal storm. Could spell some trouble here. In fact, the NAM model suddenly throws out a bunch of sleet. This purple area here represents sleet, freezing rain, maybe even a little bit of snow in the very northwest extent. This is by early Sunday, backing in all the way into the DC metro region, for example. Not all models are doing this. This is something that is on the table. We'll have to watch for. And here we go now down to a 995 low with cold high pressure centered over New England come Sunday. And it kind of just rotates around again on the northwest fringes, maybe cold enough for some frozen precipitation to mix in later in the day on Sunday. And that then just starts to pull up the coast now down to a 991 millibar low come Sunday night, and that finally pulls to the north and east and impacts New England, even into the southeastern part of Canada, now down to a 987 low come Monday morning, with stiff north west winds by that time in the Mid-Atlantic region. So we have this potential coastal storm that could impact the Mid-Atlantic region later in the weekend going into the early part of next week. Certainly coastal sections from Long Island down to the Carolinas could have some strong wind gusts and significant precipitation. Rain could back all the way into the I-95 corridor region. It could be cold enough for some frozen precipitation involved there, including ice pellets perhaps later Sunday going into Sunday night in D.C., Philadelphia, ultimately New York City as well. So we have quite an interesting situation setting up with respect to this coastal storm for the latter part of the weekend into the early part of next week. That's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.